woods where we landed, with 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Wailing Woods where we landed, with 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the opportune time to show them this new power of mine. Wailing Woods where we landed, with 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Wailing Woods where we landed, with 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the opportune time to show them this new power of mine. Wailing Woods where we landed, with 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Wailing Woods where we landed, with 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the opportune time to show them this new power of mine. Wailing Woods where we landed, with 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Wailing Woods where we landed, with 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the opportune time to show them this new power of mine. Wailing Woods where we landed, with 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Wailing Woods where we landed, with 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now, waiting for the opportune time to show them this new power of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Wailing Woods is where we landed. Till Row is the next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Unplugged Unfiltered. I am Brian Clements alongside Bob Clements, and tonight we have an incredible guest, someone that I've recently connected with and really actually just started using their product. Mike and Cass Lazaro were the ones who recommended it to me.
There should have been your first sign.
Yes, yeah. If Mike and Cass recommend it, you do it, right? You don't question it. You just say,
okay,
yes.
that's fine.
Yeah,
okay,
so,
that's fine.
But we have Drew on tonight with Connect the Dots, and Connect the Dots has honestly become such a massive tool in my tool belt, and I'm excited because for me, networking is crucial as an entrepreneur. It is crucial as a business owner, as a founder. It's just crucial in life. So super excited. Drew, thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to have you on, and yeah, I'm excited. This is going to be a fun podcast, something that's truly important to me and something that I just really love. So Drew, welcome, and go ahead and kind of introduce yourself a little bit. I know you've done some pretty crazy things. You've done some stuff with Salesforce, started off when they weren't a very big company, and now you kind of went off on your own to do your own thing. So Drew, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, Brian and Bob, thank you both so much for having me. And yeah, I guess networking is how we got here, right? Mike and Cass Lazaro are investors in Connect the Dots. I got to know them through another set of people that knew, Mike and Cass via my Salesforce network. Mike and Cass, they suggested you check out Connect the Dots. You checked it out. I saw that you were using it. I was curious how you were using it and getting some value from it. And that's how you and I connected. And then, that's how this thing all came to be. So it's all these people knowing people that makes the world go round and makes it a really fun thing to be alive and, doing interesting things.
Well, and I will have to say that as someone who is a founder, right, the last thing that I expected was a founder to reach out to me and ask me how my experience was. Like, that was pretty crazy to me that you reached out and you're like, how's your experience? Like, that entrepreneurial spirit. And I will also say that, we kind of got started late a little bit. First off, had a conversation with Drew before this, but Drew's entrepreneurial spirit, he goes, okay, so I've got a little bit more time to multitask. That right there is an entrepreneur, is a founder at heart. But I will say, for a company like Connect the Dots, for that, I truly did not expect to receive an email from you. And it's incredible that you reached out to say, hey, how's your experience? Like that to me just shows the amount of love that you have for what you're building.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely a labor of love. We love the product that we built, and I guess we'll talk about that a little bit, but to your original question, who am I? So I'll do a quick intro. I'm Drew Sechrist. We've established at least that fact. I grew up on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, and then went to college down in North Carolina. And after that, I had a couple of jobs that got me into the Salesforce automation space. This was back in the late 90s. And so I was paying attention to that space, and I noticed in the Wall Street Journal that this guy named Mark Benioff had left Oracle, and he had taken $2 million from an investment from Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle, to start a new company called Salesforce.com. And when I figured out what they were doing, I thought, that's brilliant. And so I read about that in the Wall Street Journal. I emailed Mark, and Mark, basically the company I'd worked for at the time, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina at that point, was reselling Salesforce automation products, like what Salesforce was about to produce. They were about to bring a new type of that out to market. And so I said, hey, Mark, we'd love to resell your product when you're ready to take it to market. And he said, we're not going to have a reseller network. We're only going to have a direct sales team. And then I thought, okay, Mark, well, we should talk about something else then. Yeah, he said, fly out to San Francisco and let's talk. So I did. I hopped on a plane, and long story short, Mark offered me a job, and I became employee number 36 at Salesforce back when it was a tiny little company. Didn't stay tiny for very long, though. We were off to the races pretty quickly and grew rapidly. And I was there for a decade. And so went from pre-revenue, we didn't have any paying customers when I got there, to over $1 billion in recurring revenue when I left 10 years later. And so obviously an experience like that, that's like way better than any MBA you can go get,
Yeah, absolutely.
You learn a ton. And so I learned a ton about, what works, obviously. Learn some things that don't work too. But one of the things that worked really well during that particularly the early years, and then as we grew, we continued doing it, but the way we did it changed, was what we called connect the dots.
Yeah. And
connect the dots meant back then, and still does actually, if you talk to anybody who comes from the Salesforce diaspora, they'll use that term to mean, okay, who in our network do we know that can get us in the room with the right person at the company that we're trying to sell to?
Yeah.
So how do we get directly to the CEO of that company, or the GM of that division, or the CMO of that that company? And we did it first the old-fashioned way at Salesforce. We just would ask each other, and we were all in the same room. And Mark built a really great culture at the company where we were all in the same boat, rowing in the same direction. Mm-hmm. And so everybody who could figure out a helpful way to get in. Oh, my neighbor works at Cisco, or I go to church with somebody at Cisco, so I can help you get in there. Or Mark's like, or Mark plays golf with, the CEO. Everybody would be willing to help figure out how to break into that account.
Yeah.
And so that was great. And it worked really, really well for us. And it inspired this idea for connect the dots. We figured out how to build technology that lets companies do this at scale. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But then the rest of my introduction, let's see. I'm married, and I live in a bunch of different places right now: Miami, San Francisco, and Belgrade, Serbia. So I'm kind of constantly doing a loop.
Hard for the law to follow you. Is that what you're saying?
As soon as they get close, I hop on.
There you go. Yeah.
But we have reasons for all of those places. My wife is actually Serbian.
Cool.
Okay.
We also have a significant chunk of our operations in Belgrade, and awesome. I'm coming to you from San Francisco today. So
nice.
Cool. That's a little background on me.
Yeah. Well, and again, as I've kind of been doing some digging, as I've kind of been researching. Of course, I research all of our guests that we have on, and research everything that you're doing. What you have been able to create, and where you kind of came from with those first Salesforce years. And I didn't know that the connect the dots necessarily came from Salesforce, but building that out is just it's incredible, because again, you took something, and in the words of Mike and Cass, then you took that and then you pivoted to create something completely different, but with the same skill sets that you've had. And with that all being said, like, you have an incredible network that you're able to do. So I think that it's awesome what you've been able to create. And again, I've already bragged on connect the dots, right? I use it every single day. It's nice to have connections like Cass and Mike in your connections, right? Because they have a lot of connections. But explain to us a little bit about connect the dots. Like, what is CTD.AI? What is that, for our viewers who don't know that, and anybody who's watching, if you don't know what connect the dots is, listen up, because this is something you have to have as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as a business person. You need to go get an account in it, and it's free to set up, right? The main accounts are free. So you would be just stupid to not go get an account.
A nice compliment to all of our
Yes,
guests.
yes.
So,
I'm not saying everybody here is
That's-
stupid, but if you don't do it,
and that'll be the end of our show.
yeah, we just got canceled, but that's okay because we have a fun time.
Drew's
here.
still with us.
Yes, Drew's.
I have
But-
a CTD account, so
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah, there you go. So, but if once Drew explains what CTD.AI is, what Connect the Dots is, if you don't get account, you are missing out on so much potential with what technology gives us nowadays. It's crazy. So Drew, explain to us what you created there, and what people who sign on can gain from that. Because again, I use it, I know, probably 10 times a day as I'm building my tech business, as I'm building my software business, right? I go on there and say, okay, who am I connected with and who are they connected with? I'll let you explain in depth a little bit more about how that all works and what it truly is.
Yeah, absolutely. So at its core, for an individual, it's free. CTD is free. You can go set up an account. And what it will do is it will let you reverse engineer your graph of relationships. So the list of all the people that you know based on the people that you've communicated with. Now, think about this as like, I'll compare and contrast for a moment. Think of like LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. You have connections on those social media platforms because you connect to them. You'll like, you might follow me on Instagram or become a friend on Facebook or link into me on LinkedIn. And so you're kind of declaring, okay, I know Drew and I'm connected to him. This is kind of 180 degrees different. The exact opposite. It is you and I have communicated a bunch, and therefore we know that you know me, right?
Yeah.
And know that I know you. And the cool thing is we can also calculate, this is a really important thing when you're thinking about how to manage your network as a business person, as an entrepreneur, or in a company that has outbound sales motions. You need to know how well people know each other in order to be able to figure out what are the best relationships that we have at our disposal to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. And so by flipping this thing on its head and instead of being like Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, flipping it, and we'll tell you who you know.
Yeah.
And then we can score automatically all those relationships. You get this relationship indicators, strength indicator. That's what we do. So, and it runs in the background. The way you turn it on is you create an account on Connect the Dots, CTD.AI. You plug in any and all of your email accounts to it. You can install our Chrome extension and it will synchronize in your LinkedIn contacts as well. And what it'll do is show you everybody that you've ever communicated with and this relationship score and all the contacts that you have in one neatly ordered place for all the relationships that you have. So if you look up Cass Lazaro, for example, you would see that you've got a, whatever, call it a familiar or a strong relationship score with her. And then you would see all of the communication that you've had with Cass going back to the beginning of time. And and you have that, for me, I've plugged in, my work email account, my Gmail account, which I've had for, 2+ decades now. I have a couple of business accounts that I connected. I've connected my LinkedIn, and it has pulled out about 43,000 contacts for me.
Yeah.
And they're all neatly scored and ordered. So like, my mom and dad are at the top because I've got a strong relationship with them, lots of communication. And then down at the bottom are the people who spam me and I never replied. Or, everybody else. And now I never lose track of who I know. So if we're looking at, getting into an account, like, who do we know over there? And I can type in the name of the account, like, I don't know, Databricks or something. Type in Databricks and I can see all of the people that I know who I might have known from completely different contexts. Maybe somebody I worked with 15 years ago, and they changed jobs 4 times and now they're at this company. Or maybe somebody who used to be an old customer of mine or my neighbor, or somebody who used to babysit, my niece, whatever. It could be anything. And those people just, now that because it's all automatic, they're all aggregated. And there's all this like serendipity in the world. You look at all these companies and all the companies you're trying to get into. And I individually have this amazing network. Now, where it gets even more interesting is on Connect the Dots. It is one big graph of relationships, kind of like a Facebook or a LinkedIn or an Instagram. And what that means is you're doing that, and so am I, and so are Mike Lazaro and Cass and a bunch people friends and investors and people and customers of yours, et cetera, et cetera. And when you're on the system together, what you can do is see who all of your network knows and how well they know those people.
Yeah.
So where this becomes incredibly powerful is if you're trying to get to whatever, so you're trying to get to a podcast guest.
Yeah.
And you can see like, Mike has a strong relationship with that person. Like, I'm going to ask Mike. So you can do that. You can make it, and it's very simple to see the best path in because they're all scored. You see the people who really have strong relationships versus the people who are, they just connected on LinkedIn, but they don't really know each other well enough to activate that relationship.
Yeah.
So, and then the next level of this is when you turn it on for a company. So if you're a company that has a B2B sales team and you turn on Connect the Dots, we do this at a company level. So everybody in the company has a CTD account created for them. We pull out all of the contacts and score all of their relationships. And it's extensible to people outside their company that are affiliated with them too, like their board, their investors, their advisors, their customers. So then they get these kind of godlike powers to see all across their network who they can get to in the fastest, easiest, most powerful way to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's truly incredible because, from a podcast side, from a software, of course, I'm building a software company. And with that, like I can go on there and look, and I think in my profile, I have like 71,000 companies that I have some type of a connection with through someone that I'm connected with. And it's incredible because that takes out a lot of that cold calling, so to speak, in it, because I can say, hey, Mike, or hey, Cass, or hey, Gary, or, any of the people that I have a good connection with. I can say, I know this person. I'm going to ask a favor, right? Connect me to that person. And it removes so much guesswork. It removes a lot of the legwork too. I mean, I can create a connection now because of Connect the Dots in a matter of minutes, where it would have taken me forever to create that. And it's truly, truly incredible. And I mean, I was on there and I will say it's amazing to see the connections that you have, right? We always say on this podcast, it's the saying, 6 degrees to
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
And what Connect the Dot does is gets rid of that 6 degrees.
Right.
It's right there. It's in your face. It's done for you. And it's organized perfectly. And I will say also, whenever I go onto my LinkedIn page, right, I go onto a profile on LinkedIn, and whether I'm looking at maybe a CEO of a tractor company that we're trying to integrate with our software, I look at that, and on the right-hand side of that LinkedIn page, it pops up my Connect the Dots score, and it shows me, hey, you're connected this well with this person. It's truly an incredible product. And again, whoever's watching this, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, if you think you want to be an entrepreneur, go get you a Connect the Dots account right now, because it will be life-changing. It truly is life-changing.
Yeah. So Drew, let me ask you. So I'm a starting out entrepreneur, and I'm trying to connect with, let's say let's say I sell bank products or something like that. And I'm trying to connect with a bank. I don't have an outside salesperson yet, so I am the guy. So if I got and signed up with you guys and I put my contacts in, it basically connects me with everybody that I know that would potentially get me connected with the vice president of marketing or whatever position maybe in a bank. So if I'm a brand new entrepreneur, and because everybody has connections, they just don't know how they're connected, so to speak. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about your product here. Yep. But that would be a massive plus for me, rather than me going out and knocking on doors and cold calling. Because I started out in sales in '73. And remember the old strategic selling, Miller Hyman, right? Complex selling. And I started out on Goldmine. You remember the product Goldmine?
I was implementing Goldmine.
Okay. Right? So I said, yeah, I had Goldmine, and then before that was ACT, right? Those are the platforms. So, so then Salesforce came on, and obviously just became the dominating force in the market, which is really cool. A lot of our customers that I work with, they all use Salesforce. So Salesforce is the powerhouse out there for it. But as a new business owner, I I could do that. I could literally say, okay, it's just me, but I got to make these contacts. I got to build these relationships. So I could use your product, put in all of my contacts, and literally it would say, okay, the gal that you go to church with on Sundays is connected with Bob Clements over here, who's the vice president of marketing for this bank. And is that kind of how it would work? So I'm thinking of it as a new entrepreneur that I don't want to go cold call, but I can talk to Mary, and maybe Mary can connect me here. Am I right on how it works?
Close. So what it will do is show you who you know in your network and where they are now.
Okay.
Now, if you want to see who all the people that Mary knows, then what you need to do is, and this is where it's like we have a personal product for individuals, and if you're an individual entrepreneur, that's probably what you would use. If you're a company, and frankly, where we spend most of our time is selling to companies that already have a large built-in kind of employee base, and board and investors and advisors. So when you turn on the business edition turns on an account for everybody in your network, your microcosm, your company, and then you're able to see through each other's networks. If you're an individual, I'll just be upfront about this. If you want to see Mary's contacts, you need to invite Mary to be a user on Connect the Dots with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when she becomes a user, then you can see her network. It's like Mike and Cass are users, and so they've got all their scored relationships. And because of that, Brian can see all those scored relationships. So you need to recruit your network to be part of, if you want to be able to see through them who they know, you need to recruit them in to be users of CTD with you.
But if I were, let's just take this a little bit farther. So I'm a young entrepreneur, and we're in Kansas City, Missouri. So I'm at the Kansas City Chamber of Commerce business meeting. And I start talking to other people and say, hey, let's all get on this together. Yep. Right? You get on it, I get on it, you get on like this. And so I could literally at a meeting start bringing other people on board with the product, that all of a sudden now all of us have got this connection. When I started out in sales in 73, I used to go out and I sold, this is kind of sad, but I sold typewriters. So for Olivetti out of Italy. But anyways, that's how I got started in sales. But I found out that the easiest way, and I sold to professional offices, so doctors, it was a correcting typewriter. You had to have it perfect. It was $1,800 in 1973, half the price of a Ford Mustang, right? So it was expensive. But I found out, again, you're learning as a salesperson, that I would go into, let's say, a doctor's office, and the secretary would be complaining about their paper supplier. I figured out, I know a guy that supplies paper. And so we all started connecting together and started sharing all these leads. Because he had places that I couldn't get into that he could get me into. That's literally what this does. Let's us in a really cool way make all those connections. And we were all, we were all bird dogging for each other.
Yeah.
So we met on a Monday morning at 7:00, had breakfast, and we started sharing leads back and forth.
This would be amazing. This would be amazing for that. If you just got your Chamber of Commerce group together and you said, look, guys, we all sell different things to the same customers. Let's figure out our collective relationships, and yes, it'd be perfect.
I think it's a phenomenal, because it is all about relationships. And again, when you're brand new, my company's 40 years old, so I'm past that anymore. But when you're brand new, it's just trying to figure out, how do I get started? And most people who start a business not because they have a passion for going out and cold calling and talking to strangers. Yeah. Right. What your product does is it bypasses all that. So all I have to do is get the people that I know to say, let's all get together and create this super group.
Absolutely.
And then from that, we can build that, and we can start leveraging. I think your product is phenomenal. So I'd love to have this in 73 instead of a yellow pages and a phone, a payphone.
Could you have made this work on a typewriter? That is the question.
Well, one to connect the dots was just,
Drew could have.
The person next to you in the office and saying,
exactly.
Hey, anybody at that company.
Pass them a note.
Well, and I think that's the exciting thing about where technology is going, right? Is as long as you're not scared to adopt the technology, it makes life so much easier. And as you're talking about that, I think it would be incredible, if you were to go out to all of the dealers that you work with your company and say, hey, dealer group, we got 7,200 dealers that we deal with on a yearly basis, and say, hey, I want every single one of you to go download this, right? and now you have 7,200. The amount and Drew might know, I mean, but I can't imagine there'd be probably 720,000 connections. I mean, I'm just thinking that maybe 1,000 per or 100 per person, maybe more than that. I don't know. Drew, probably you might know on average what the amount of connections. I mean, some people are way more. I mean, you've got Cass and Mike, right? They've got 17 billion connections, and then you got me who has one, which is Mike Lazaro.
I have so I can right now my second degree network is about 4.7 million people.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's second degree. And then when we look at it as a company, so in aggregate, think about this. When our corporate users use us, it's almost like it doesn't matter who in the company has the relationship, because they should all be in the same boat rowing in the same direction, right? So
absolutely,
if you're in the same company, you should be able to ask your colleague, your executive, or anybody in the organization, if they've got a relationship with somebody who's got a relationship with the person you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
You can we show you that path, and then you can ask. And now that goes, we don't actually calculate that number because it would actually be kind of an expensive number to calculate. But it's millions of people that you can get through that.
Yeah, it's incredible, and I'm going to tell everybody who's on here. I mean, we've got over 1,000 people on TikTok watching us right now. We've got all of these people. This is not a typical podcast, right? This feels more like a sales pitch, and I'm going to tell you, it feels like a sales pitch because I believe in this so much and I use it so much. Like, this is something I'm passionate about. I love networking. Networking is how I've created 90% of what I've created is through networking. And so this is 100%. There's no transactional anything happening here other than the fact that I love what Drew has created and I'm so passionate about networking. And if you're an entrepreneur, you have to network. Like, you can grind and grind and grind. And I was talking to Mike and Cass earlier today. We were on a meeting earlier today, and you can grind and grind and grind and grind and grind, right? But if you're not building that network of other entrepreneurs, and that's the whole purpose of Unplugged Unfiltered, right? Is building networks for young entrepreneurs to be able to ask those hard questions, ask, where do I go? Doing that through Connect the Dots, it simplifies. I don't know what we're doing here is Unplugged Unfiltered, because with Connect the Dots, you don't need us, right?
Well,
you've got all the connections to ask those questions.
That's probably not the appropriate thing to say.
Oh, yeah.
I would go back again, Loeb. I mean, it goes back to, and again, I started my company as training salespeople, working with Tom Hopkins and Tony Robbins, and one of the things that we know, that if it's just a cold call, you got about a 10% probability of closing the transaction. Once it becomes warm, that moves up to about a 40% probability, right? Still probably not going to be 100%, but the difference between a 10 and a 40 is massive amounts of numbers, dollars. I mean, massive. And that to me is kind of the cool thing about what you're doing here. Again, this is the ability for me to take, I'm struggling to, I'm thriving.
Yes.
Surviving. You're moving businesses from a survival mode to a thriving mode with this, just leveraging all these different connections. So, and the only downside I see is that it's free.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
and so a lot of people go, well, it can't be that good if it's free. Yeah. But I'm going back again and say, if you are an entrepreneur, and again, most of these small businesses, they're trying to make connections. And so they connect with the local chambers, the business communities, and stuff like this. This is the absolute biggest no-brainer in the world.
100%.
To go do this and leverage this, because this is gonna take you from surviving in business to thriving in business.
Well, and I will say again, this is not a sales pitch to any extent, but taking it.
Drew is sending us a check.
Correct? Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
No, just kidding.
I should. This has been great.
I just want to be clear on that.
No, but with that being said, is this is not a sales pitch, but the value you get moving to that business side of things, where you can see all of the employee network, it is worth every penny. You could not pay someone $100 an hour to do what their system does in a matter of seconds. So again, not a sales pitch, but you go do it. If you don't do it, you're stupid.
That's great.
And
Well,
that's the reality of it.
Well, yeah,
Especially for the free side. I mean, the free, like it's free. So I will say, so moving from kind of connect the dots, what you've created, I want to talk from the entrepreneurial side is stepping away from Salesforce to create connect the dots, right? And I was just talking to another entrepreneur earlier today. I actually had dinner with him tonight. And one of the things that he was like, you know, how do I go from a safety net, right? A security, something that I know is going to pay, to doing my own thing that is brand new. It's scary. How do you take that leap? And I want to, you know, kind of moving away from what connect the dots is to that founder, to that entrepreneurial side. What kind of advice would you give to a young entrepreneur who is saying, I need to maybe step away from what I'm doing so I can focus on building maybe my dream, my passion? What kind of advice would you give someone like that?
I think the big question is, Brian's going, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
When you left the security of Salesforce to do this?
Yeah. Brian and my mom asked the same question. Well, you know, so there are a couple things. One is I was in the lucky position after, you know, a good long run at Salesforce that, you know, financially I could take risks at that point. Mm-hmm. And so that was my goal all along. My goal going into Salesforce was I wanted to start a company and I wanted to make enough money, build enough expertise, and make enough connections that I could start my own successful company. Yeah. And I was going to do it a lot sooner than, you know, leaving after 10 years. It took me 10 years to leave, but Salesforce was such a rocket ship. It was really hard to say no at any point. I would say one other thing is you got to just know what is in your heart and like, what do you want? Because if, sure, there's security in staying at a rocket ship company that is going to pay you a lot of money. There is. But if that's not really what your heart wants to do, I mean, just making money is not what it's all about in life. Yeah. From my perspective. Yeah. So that's one thing. Two is I'm not a super fancy person. So my lifestyle costs were pretty low. And so I at any point, I'm pretty happy with a very simple lifestyle. There are a few things that I like to have. You know, I like to have a motorcycle. I like to have a surfboard. You know, but I'm not like a super fancy person. So, and that was partially because that's how I grew up, and we're just kind of simple Pennsylvania folk. But also there was some intentionality to it too, because when you keep your lifestyle costs low, then you can be happy. You know, it doesn't matter if you're not making a gazillion dollars at your, you know, high paying job that you used to be at, and you're an entrepreneur and you're not making anything or making a very little bit of money. So I would say just, you know, ask yourself, who are you? What do you want? And if you really want to be an entrepreneur, then I think it behooves you to keep at least keep your expenses low for a period of time so that you can get that period until you get to, you know, solid product market fit and your company is growing, and then you can make a lot of money again. That's great.
There you go. So you're saying as an entrepreneur, when you get your first big check, you shouldn't go buy a Ferrari. Is that what you're saying?
No, a motorcycle. Yeah.
Motorcycle for a lot less than a Ferrari. One of my favorite bosses at Salesforce, you know, after we leveraged his relationships and we got in at a very big deal at a company, at a semiconductor company, and they got a big paycheck out of it. And so we connected the dots in, we leveraged his relationships, and he said, Drew, oh, this is great. You're getting your first really big commission check. What you need is a really nice car. And I was like, Jim, I'm not going to take that. I know what you're doing. You want me to buy the nice car, buy a big house,
leverage, right?
Expensive hobbies, really expensive hobbies, and then be on the drip forever, you know, because it's great to have motivated salespeople who have very expensive hobbies.
Absolutely.
But I was actually, you know, that was not my path. My path was, I was not going to be the expensive hobby salesperson. I was going to be the entrepreneur who kept my lifestyle costs low so that I could get through the entrepreneurial journey and be happy.
Yeah.
So just curious, are you from Pennsylvania? Whereabouts in Pennsylvania did you grow up?
Just outside of Harrisburg, a little town called Lewisberry. And if either of you know it, I'm going to be shocked.
We've got reason I ask, I have a lot of dealers I work with that are in Pennsylvania, New Holland and Lancaster and all through the areas there. Yeah. What did your parents do?
Dad is now a retired lawyer. Mom is a retired teacher.
Okay. So your dad obviously is a lawyer. Did he have his own firm?
He did. He started out in a practice. And then when I was pretty young, I think the practice dissolved, and he hung out his own shingle. And then he was an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. So sometimes if you don't have entrepreneurs you're around, your father was an entrepreneur. Yeah. Your mom was there. So it's a little helpful to have somebody that has kind of been down the path and can continue to encourage you. If you don't have that, so Drew, if I didn't have that and I didn't have a parent or parents that supported you, how would you have motivated yourself? How would you have driven yourself?
Well, you mean down the entrepreneurial road?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not sure that they necessarily they didn't encourage or discourage me from doing any of this stuff. I should probably, that's probably not the fairest way to put it. They've always encouraged me to do whatever I want to do.
Okay.
Yeah. It's awesome. Like hey, shout out mom and dad. You're great. Like they really are. And so if you're not lucky enough to have Jerry or Joel Sechrist as your parents, like I was, then I don't know, read a good book by Tony Robbins or something.
Yeah. Or we're promoting right now Mike and Cass's book, Shoveling Shit. So. Unlimited Power is an old book that you should not read anymore, but the Shoveling Shit is the new.
I would be promoting
bookshelf right over there, which you can't.
Okay. I would be promoting Gary Vaynerchuk's books, but he always texts me mean texts after my podcast. He goes, "Well, that was okay." I said, "Thanks."
The reason I asked the question is because, again, I grew up on a dairy farm. I mean, my family were farmers and stuff like that. So we didn't have a lot of money. And so it was, my mom and dad were kind of a little bit more play it safe kind of people. And you have to, I guess my point is you have to find people who are entrepreneurial. Typically what I did is I discovered some older entrepreneurs that I connected with that became my don't give up, stay in there. Yes, it sucks. It'll get better. Things like that. So I was just curious, have you been around that type of
oh yeah,
drive you?
Yeah. And I mean, that was part of the siren song that I heard in San Francisco, in the first place. When I was in North Carolina, I was living in Charlotte right before I moved out here. And there's definitely an entrepreneurial scene that I did find in Charlotte. I was working for an entrepreneur, this guy who started the company I was working for called Bridge Builder, which was doing implementations of Salesforce automation tools like Goldmine and that kind of stuff. And so I was around entrepreneurship there, but then when I got to San Francisco, man, I mean, that's the hotbed of entrepreneurship. It's happening. Exploding all around. I got there in 1999 when new companies were springing up like mushrooms everywhere. So I got plenty of exposure to that and found a good friend group right away, like in 99, 2000, of people who were either entrepreneurs or were in companies, but were plotting to go out and start their own thing. We actually it was called Build Team. And so I don't know if any Build Team people are listening out there, but it was a really fun crew of people, very smart, like switched on, and we would share best practices and ideas. And a lot of companies got started from that. And so yes, I think you want to be around people who are going to support you, encourage you. In general, like that old adage or axiom, like you become like the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yeah,
I think that's really important, and that was one thing I feel like I did a very good job of selecting Salesforce, but I also feel like I got really lucky at selecting Salesforce and Salesforce selecting me, because then I was around these incredible people that I got to learn via osmosis from all day, every day for a decade. Yeah. So I would say that was, if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, couple things. One is get after it, go do it. Don't wait, don't let time waste. And you're going to learn the most by doing it and failing. Yeah. So I would say just get after it. And the other thing I would say is if you're not quite ready to get after it, or you're not quite sure what you want to do, then go surround yourself with the best possible people who are going to you're going to learn from, so that
Yeah.
a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, when you're ready to do it, you now have that network. You know how you have the knowledge that you've learned from osmosis, from being around those people, and hopefully you've saved some pennies so that you're ready to go, go do the entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the thing that Brian and I, because our whole purpose of our podcast is really talking to young entrepreneurs that are trying to figure out, do I really want to do it, or things like this, and bringing on people that are successful entrepreneurs is part of it, because nobody ever starts out successful, right?
Yeah.
You start at zero and you build it from there.
Yep.
But really, to your point again, is you got to find a group of people that are entrepreneurs. Because I have found in the 40 years I've been in business, entrepreneurs tend to be more than happy to share and coach and mentor. They don't want anything for it. They're just excited that you want to be a part of their tribe. Okay?
Yeah.
This is a unique group of people out here. That's a very kind of a unique type of person that's able to do this. And we always tell our young entrepreneurs is you may not be ready yet, but you got to search out. This is why I'm so darn excited about your product. I have the ability to, in a very simple way, start connecting with entrepreneurs. So I may not be ready to start yet, but as I tell people, offer to take an entrepreneur out to lunch. They probably will end up buying it for you anyway, but they will have lunch with you, and they will talk to you, and they will share. And as I always tell people, shut up and listen and take their advice. Right? Trust me, they're smarter than what you think they are to do that. So that's great.
No, and kind of, I mean, we're getting close to the end of our podcast, and this time has flown in incredibly fast, because again, it's something I'm truly passionate about. I think that as an entrepreneur, one of the best things you can do is create a network, right? I mean, having a network, having that support, and like Bob just said, is having a group of entrepreneurs behind you. Right. is massive. And so what I'm going to say, kind of as we're getting kind of close to the closing, is go on to connect the dots, right? Create an account. Most of you guys have connected with me in some way or shape or form. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's build this relationship so that you can continue to grow your network through my network. I'm more than happy to share everybody that I've ever created a connection with. More than happy to share that. And so go on CTD.AI, create an account. Let's make sure that we're connected, and then let's start building your network as an entrepreneur. If you have a question, reach out to me. Let me connect you to the right people. I'm more than happy to do that. But to kind of finish this off, there's two things that I really am kind of, it's one thing with Drew, with you, with entrepreneurs, with business owners, is the fear of AI, right?
Well, let's face it, we've all seen the movies.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer Wall-E. He prefers Terminator. It's kind of that.
Or RoboCop.
RoboCop. Yeah. But so when it comes to that, like, I know that that's probably been a question that people have asked is, what about AI? Like, what is your safeguards, right? I mean, there's people who are scared of AI. There's people who are, fanatics about AI. And it's a question that I get asked a lot, because my company that I'm building right now, we have 3 proprietary AI bots that we're building for it. Right. And so what is your response, as an entrepreneur, maybe someone, and we talk about young entrepreneurs doesn't mean young in age. Right. It just maybe is someone new, but when it comes to AI, what's your take? Do we have to worry about the iRobot with Will Smith happening, or is this, is it a pretty safe to connect your network through Connect the Dots?
Well, I'm not going to tie those two together. So
I know. That was a stretch.
I'll give you my the very, very high level thoughts on AI, where we're going. AI is a superhuman intelligence already. It just is not. It's not plumbed into all the data yet. It doesn't have access to all the data yet, and it doesn't have its own desires, wishes, agenda yet. Yeah. But when you ask it something, it's pretty darn good at answering the question. It's really
Yeah.
smart. So the other thing that's happening is robotics is you can see all the stuff on TikTok and YouTube and whatever. I mean, robots are amazing and they're getting more and more amazing. And we're already seeing, here in San Francisco, Waymos are self-driving around the city all the time. They're very, very commonplace now. So I think, we are heading into I believe, this is my high level view on it. We are heading into a post scarcity world, which has its own set of problems. It's all like, it sounds great, but it also sounds like there are a lot of problems with it. But, we have organized ourselves as a species that we're organized based on scarcity. There aren't enough pens or glasses or iPhones or whatever in the world, not enough, service providers and all this stuff. That's really, you got to think about it. Like if you forecast out, I don't know, years, decades, it's going to be fully automated. Like, all the services, all the products are going to be fully automated, which should mean that we end up in a utopia where everybody has all their needs met, but also not having all our needs met gives us purpose. That we focus on the things that are scarce in our lives. So I think it's a time of great opportunity and also great danger. And I think I would almost say like, we got to all figure out how do we organize as a species going forward to ride this wave in the best way possible so that it turns into this utopian society that we can have and doesn't turn into the dystopian future. It's not WALL-E, it's not Terminator. There's a third way. We got to figure it out. Now pulling that in a little bit more near term, now today, what's it mean for entrepreneurs? It means the rate of change is so incredibly fast. And if you're not building, whatever you're building, assume it's AI native. Whatever you're building, it doesn't matter. It almost doesn't really matter what product or service you're building. You have to figure out, how do we do this in the way that will take maximum advantage of all of the advancements that we have today and are going to be coming tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So, I think you just have to, you really have to just build with a completely, it is the main tool going forward in your toolkit, no matter what you're building as a company. So that's it. You have to be that AI is your main tool. You have to use it.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that we've really been pushing on our podcast in the last couple of episodes is we are in an age where being an entrepreneur, it has never been a better time to be an entrepreneur, right? With AI, with technologies, with connect the dot, with all of this technology that you have. I mean, and again, and this is jokingly, but not jokingly, for you, when you started off in sales, right, you would have had a Rolodex.
I had
something.
I had a Rolodex and 3x5 cards.
That you had to go through.
And then I got gold mine, and I thought I was in heaven.
Yeah, but with Connect the Dots, I mean, Connect the Dots is doing everything that your Rolodex did for me in a matter of seconds. Plus, it's amplifying that to the 100th degree.
Right.
I mean, so if you're an entrepreneur, if you're someone who's ever been serious about being an entrepreneur, is taking that step, it has never been a better time to do that. And Drew has created an incredible tool for every single entrepreneur that's out there. And even if you're not an entrepreneur, I will say this too, even if you're not necessarily an entrepreneur trying to build a business for yourself, maybe you're just a salesperson who wants to increase their sales. Connect the Dots is an incredible tool for that as well. So,
but I think with AI, and this kind of goes back to what Drew was saying, I think if you look at AI where it's at today, and you look at entrepreneurs, I think about, we all used to have a flip phone. Okay. How many apps, Drew, did you run on your flip phone? That'd be 0.
I think the phone calling app.
Okay. All right. And so now we've gone from flip phones to smartphones. How many businesses now today have built apps that are for smartphones? And that's how I look at AI. I think, if you're an entrepreneur, there will be more opportunities than you'll ever think about as you stay in front of it and you work with it. So I'm excited about artificial intelligence, and I'm with you. I just think, again, if you look at, going from a flip phone to a smartphone, nobody's going to go back to a flip phone. Well, there may be a few, But,
I mean,
how many businesses are there out there today
Yeah.
that didn't exist before smartphones came into being? So
well, I will say, Rob.
I understand there are a few people.
So I run a ranch, and one of the guys who I work with and stuff like that on the ranch, he is refused to move to a smartphone. So, but great guy, great
Yes.
guy. So, but with that, I'm gonna just say, Drew, it has been such an honor and such a pleasure to have you on. Anybody who is watching this as a recording, anybody who's watching this live, if you want. I'm going to make sure that Connect the Dots is in all of the descriptions. You guys need to go check it out. It is the most priceless tool that you can get for networking. And networking, to me, I've built my businesses on networks. It is how I built it. It's an incredible tool. But yeah, you guys go check out Connect the Dots. And Drew, thank you so much for being on here. It's truly been a blast having you on here. It's been great talking about Connect the Dots. And then just your journey as an entrepreneur, right? It's where you went from college to then working for Salesforce, and then taking what you learned at Salesforce and being able to say, you know what, this is a business in itself. This is something. And when you started at Salesforce, right? Connect the Dots, I don't know, would have necessarily worked the way that it's working now because technology is advanced. And so you've pivoted, you've adjusted,
Right.
You've created something with technology, and you've advanced with the times to create, something that's truly incredible. So I appreciate all your time on here, and everybody who's viewed. We appreciate you guys watching in. And if you have questions, you have comments, I know we have some comments, and I haven't been able to pay too much attention to the comments, but I will go back and respond to every single comment on all of the lives after this. But Drew, thank you so much. It's been truly an honor and a privilege to have you on. So with that, we're going to go ahead and unplug for the night. But if anyone has questions, reach out to us, info@unpluggedunfiltered.com. Check out CTD.AI and make sure you get a profile set up, and then connect with myself on LinkedIn. And then from there, you'll be able to create your own incredible network. So
cool.
Drew, with that, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And we will catch everyone next week on Unplugged Unfiltered.
Never disappoint, so we have